The sun was bright that Tuesday afternoon as Colonel Marcus Williams drove his dark blue sedan through the busy streets of downtown. He checked his watch and smiled. He had plenty of time to reach the Veterans Charity event across town. Marcus was a tall man in his late 40s with short gray hair and kind brown eyes. Today he wore his army dress uniform. The dark blue jacket was covered with ribbons and medals that told the story of his 25 years of service. He had worn this uniform to hundreds of events, but it still made him sit a little straighter in his seat. Marcus turned on his radio and hummed along to an old song. The streets were crowded with afternoon traffic. Cars moved slowly past shops and restaurants. People walked on sidewalks talking on phones and carrying shopping bags. It was a normal day in a busy city. Marcus had grown up in this town. He knew these streets well. After all his years in the army, moving from base to base and country to country, it felt good to be home. He approached a four-way intersection with stop signs on all corners. Marcus slowed his car and came to a complete stop. He looked left and saw no cars coming. He looked right and saw a large black SUV approaching the intersection from that direction. The SUV had a stop sign too. Marcus waited for the SUV to stop as the law required. But the SUV did not slow down. It rolled through the stop sign without even pausing. Marcus's eyes went wide. He hit his brakes hard, but it was too late. The front corner of the SUV struck the side of his sedan with a loud crash. Metal scraped against metal. Glass shattered. Marcus's body jerked forward against his seatbelt. His car spun slightly from the impact before coming to rest in the middle of the intersection. For a moment, Marcus just sat there. His heart pounded in his chest. His hands gripped the steering wheel. He took a deep breath and checked himself. Nothing hurt. He was okay. He looked at his passenger seat where his briefcase had fallen to the floor. Papers had scattered everywhere. Marcus unbuckled his seatbelt and opened his door. Steam rose from the crumpled front end of his car. The driver of the SUV was already out of his vehicle. He was a white man in his early 50s wearing an expensive gray suit and shiny shoes. His face was red with anger. He had perfectly styled hair and wore a gold watch that probably cost more than most people earned in a month. This was Craig Hoffman, though Marcus did not know his name yet. Craig stormed toward Marcus, pointing his finger. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted. "You hit my car. Do you have any idea how much this vehicle costs?" Marcus blinked in surprise. He stepped away from his damaged car and held up his hands in a calming gesture. "Sir, I think you need to calm down," he said in a steady voice. "You ran the stop sign." "You hit me. That's a lie," Craig yelled louder. His voice carried across the intersection. "You came out of nowhere. You weren't paying attention." Marcus kept his voice calm and professional. Years of military training had taught him how to stay cool under pressure. "Sir, I was stopped at the sign. I had the right of way. You failed to stop. Let's just exchange insurance information and let the police sort it out." Craig's face grew even redder. "Don't tell me what to do." "This is your fault." "I know what I saw." Other drivers had stopped their cars around the intersection. People on the sidewalk stopped walking and turned to watch. Some pulled out their phones and started recording. Marcus noticed the phones pointing at them. He knew this could turn into something bigger if he was not careful. "Sir, please," Marcus said, keeping his hands visible and his voice gentle. "I understand you're upset. Car accidents are stressful, but yelling won't help. We both need to stay calm and handle this properly." Craig looked Marcus up and down, really seeing him for the first time. He saw the uniform. He saw Marcus's brown skin. His eyes narrowed. "Of course," he said with a nasty laugh. "Of course this would happen. You people always think you can do whatever you want." Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. He had heard words like that before. Too many times. "I'm going to call the police," he said quietly. He reached slowly into his pocket for his phone. "You people?" a woman's voice called out from the sidewalk. An older white woman in a purple jacket walked closer. "Sir, I saw everything." "You ran that stop sign." "This man did nothing wrong." Craig whipped around to face her. "Mind your own business, lady." More people gathered. A young man with a backpack said, "She's right, man. I saw it too. You blew through that sign." "Yeah," another voice called out. "We all saw it." Craig's face twisted with rage. He turned back to Marcus. "This is ridiculous. You're all lying for him." He stepped closer to Marcus, invading his personal space. Craig was shorter than Marcus but tried to make himself seem bigger by puffing out his chest. Marcus did not step back. He stood his ground but did not move forward either. He kept his hands at his sides where everyone could see them. "I'm calling the police now," he repeated. He pulled out his phone and dialed. "Fine. Call them!" Craig shouted. "I'll tell them exactly what happened. How you caused this accident. How you tried to intimidate me." He looked around at the crowd. "You're all witnesses." He'll tell them how aggressive he was. Several people in the crowd shook their heads. A few shouted back at Craig, telling him to stop lying. One man yelled, "We got it all on video, buddy. The truth is recorded." Marcus spoke into his phone, giving the dispatcher their location and explaining there had been an accident. He was polite and clear. When he hung up, he looked at Craig. "The police are on their way. I suggest we both stay calm and wait for them." Craig laughed, but it was not a friendly sound. "Oh, I'll wait. I can't wait to tell them about you." He looked at Marcus's uniform again with disgust. "Wearing that uniform like you deserve it? Like you earned it?" Marcus felt anger flash through him hot and sudden, but he pushed it down. He had learned long ago that some people would hate him no matter what he did or what he accomplished. Responding with anger would only make things worse. "I have every right to wear this uniform," he said quietly. "I've served my country for 25 years. "Sure you have," Craig said with a sneer. "Probably sat at a desk the whole time. People like you always take credit for what real soldiers do." The older woman in the purple jacket gasped. "How dare you?" she said to Craig. "You don't know anything about this man." Other people in the crowd murmured in agreement. Someone said, "That's disrespectful to all veterans." Another person said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." But Craig was not ashamed. He seemed to feed off the attention. His voice grew louder. "I know exactly what I see. I know this type. They play the victim. They cry discrimination and everyone jumps to defend them." Marcus closed his eyes for a brief moment. He counted to 5 in his head. When he opened his eyes, he looked directly at Craig. "Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time to calm down. You're making this situation worse than it needs to be." "Don't you dare tell me what to do," Craig shouted. He stepped even closer. Marcus could smell coffee on his breath. "You think because you're in that costume you can order people around? You think you're better than me?" In the distance, sirens began to wail. The police were coming. Marcus felt relief wash over him. Soon this would be over. Soon professionals would arrive and sort out what happened. He just had to stay calm for a few more minutes. He had faced enemy fire in Iraq and Afghanistan. He could handle one angry man at an intersection. But as the sirens grew louder and Craig's face grew redder, Marcus did not yet know that his real challenge was just beginning. The arrival of the police would not make things better. Not at first. Sometimes the people who were supposed to help could make things worse. Marcus was about to learn that lesson again, even after all his years of service and all the medals pinned to his chest. The crowd around the intersection grew larger. More people stopped to watch. Some stood on the sidewalk with their phones raised, recording everything. Others stayed in their cars but rolled down windows to hear better. The afternoon sun beat down on everyone, making the air feel thick and heavy with tension. Craig paced back and forth like a caged animal. He kept pointing at Marcus and then at his damaged SUV. "Look at this," he shouted to anyone who would listen. "Look at what he did to my vehicle. This is a $70,000 car." Marcus stood near his own car with his arms crossed. He kept his face calm, but inside he felt tired. He had dealt with people like Craig before. People who thought money made them more important than others. People who thought the color of their skin gave them special rights. Marcus had spent his whole life proving himself to people who did not want to believe in him. Even now, after all he had done, after all he had sacrificed, it was not enough for some people. A young black woman in scrubs walked up to Marcus. She must have been on her way home from the hospital. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked softly. "Did you get hurt in the crash?" Marcus smiled at her kindness. "I'm fine, thank you. Just a little shaken up." "I saw everything," she said. "That man ran the stop sign. This wasn't your fault." She glanced at Craig, who was still yelling, "And the things he's saying are disgusting." "I'm so sorry. It's not your fault," Marcus told her. "But thank you for being willing to tell the truth." Craig must have heard them talking. He marched over, his face twisted with anger. "Oh, here we go." Everyone teaming up. What a surprise. He looked at the woman in scrubs. "Did he ask you to lie for him?" Is that what's happening here? The woman's eyes went wide. Excuse me? I don't appreciate what you're suggesting. I'm suggesting that you people always stick together, Craig said. His voice was so loud that people a block away could probably hear him. You see someone who looks like you and suddenly the truth doesn't matter. An older black man with a gray beard stepped forward. He wore a work uniform with an oil company logo. Son, you need to watch your mouth, he said in a deep, serious voice. You're way out of line. Don't call me son. Craig spat back. And I'll say whatever I want. This is still a free country. Marcus held up his hand. Everyone please, he said. Let's not make this worse. The police are coming. We'll let them handle it. But Craig was not interested in waiting quietly. He circled around Marcus like a shark. That uniform, he said, his voice dripping with disgust. Where did you get it? Let me guess. You bought it at some army surplus store? You probably think it makes you look important. The crowd gasped. Several people shouted at Craig to shut up. But Marcus just stood there, his military training keeping him still and composed. This is my dress uniform, he said clearly. I am a colonel in the United States Army. I've earned the right to wear it. Craig laughed, a harsh sound that made people uncomfortable. A colonel? You? That's rich. Let me see some ID then. Prove it. Marcus could have refused. He did not need to prove anything to this man. But he also knew that staying calm and showing documentation would help when the police arrived. He slowly reached into his jacket pocket, moving carefully so no one would think he was reaching for a weapon. He pulled out his military identification card and held it up. Craig snatched it from his hand before Marcus could react. He looked at the card, squinting at it like he was studying a fake dollar bill. This could be fake, he said. Anyone can make a fake ID these days. Give that back, Marcus said. His voice was still calm, but there was steel in it now. Or what? Craig challenged. He held the ID up high, out of reach. What are you going to do, attack me? That would be perfect, wouldn't it? Then we'd see who the real criminal is. The young woman in scrubs stepped forward.
Give him back his ID.
You have no right to take that. Yeah, other voices joined in.
Give it back.
Craig looked around at all the faces watching him. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Maybe doubt. Maybe the beginning of understanding that he had gone too far. But then his pride took over. He tossed the ID card onto the ground near Marcus's feet. Marcus looked down at his ID lying on the dirty street. He took a slow breath. He bent down carefully and picked it up, dusting it off before putting it back in his pocket. The crowd had gone quiet, watching this small act of dignity in the face of disrespect. You know what your problem is? Craig said. He was not done yet. Your problem is that you think this uniform means something. You think these little ribbons and medals make you special. He pointed at the rows of ribbons on Marcus's chest. Those are probably fake too. Bought them online, right? I bet you've never seen real combat. I bet you spent your whole career pushing papers. The old man with the gray beard stepped closer. Son, you're talking about things you don't understand. Those medals tell a story of sacrifice, but Craig was beyond listening. Sacrifice, please. Everyone talks about sacrifice. Everyone wants to be called a hero these days. Back in my day, we didn't need participation trophies. Your day? Someone in the crowd laughed. You look like you've never served a day in your life. Craig's face turned purple with rage. I didn't need to serve. I've contributed to this country in other ways. I've built buildings. I've created jobs. I pay taxes. That's service too. Marcus finally spoke again. His voice cut through the noise like a knife. Building buildings is admirable work, he said. Creating jobs helps communities. But don't you dare compare that to what service members sacrifice. Don't compare it to the men and women who leave their families for years, who miss their children's birthdays and their parents' funerals, who come home with wounds you can see and wounds you can't see. For just a second, the intersection was completely silent. Even Craig seemed shocked by the passion in Marcus's voice. But the moment passed quickly. Oh, here comes the speech, Craig said mockingly. The big patriotic speech. You probably practiced it in front of a mirror. Well, I'm not impressed. You want to know what I think? He stepped so close to Marcus that their faces were only inches apart. I think you're a fraud. I think you're wearing that uniform to get special treatment. I think you caused this accident on purpose so you could play the victim and sue me. The crowd erupted in angry shouts. People called Craig terrible names. Some begged Marcus to walk away. Others said they should throw Craig into traffic. The old woman in the purple jacket looked like she might hit Craig with her purse. Marcus raised both hands, asking everyone to calm down. "Please," he said loudly. "Everyone, please!" This is not helping. But helping was not what Craig wanted. He wanted to fight. He wanted to be right. "You all want to defend him?" He yelled at the crowd. "Fine. But when the police get here, they'll see the truth. They'll see through his act. A real police officer will know what's really going on here." Those words hung in the air like a threat. Some people in the crowd looked at each other with concern. They knew what Craig was suggesting. They knew that sometimes the police did not treat everyone the same way. That sometimes a uniform and medals and perfect service did not matter as much as the color of someone's skin. Marcus knew it too. He had known it his whole life. He had been stopped by police for driving while black, even when he was coming home from the base in uniform. He had been followed in stores even while wearing his medals. He had been questioned about whether he really belonged in officer housing. The uniform did not always protect him. Sometimes it made things worse because some people could not stand to see a black man with authority and respect. The sirens were very close now. Within seconds, a police car would arrive. Marcus straightened his jacket and made sure his name tag was clearly visible. He positioned himself in a spot where the officer would see him clearly when they arrived. He wanted to appear calm and professional. He wanted to do everything right. "Finally," Craig said, a smile spreading across his face. "Finally, we'll get some real authority here." He smoothed down his expensive suit and fixed his hair. He looked confident, like a man who was used to being believed. Like a man who had never been questioned by the police in his entire life. The police car pulled up with its lights flashing. The sirens went silent. Marcus could see an officer inside talking on the radio. In a moment, that officer would step out. In a moment, Marcus's day would get either better or much, much worse. He did not know which. All he could do was stand there in his uniform with his medals and his dignity and hope that justice would win. But hope, as Marcus had learned over his long career, was not always enough. The police car door opened and Officer Rick Daniels stepped out. He was a white man in his mid-30s with short blonde hair and a thick build. His uniform was crisp and clean. He wore dark sunglasses that hid his eyes. He looked around the intersection slowly, taking in the damaged cars, the crowd of people, and the two men at the center of it all. Before Daniels could say a word, Craig rushed toward him. He moved fast like a man who had been waiting his whole life for this moment. "Officer!" "Thank God you're here." Craig's voice was different now. Gone was the angry shouting. Now he sounded worried and scared, like a victim. "This man hit my car and then became extremely aggressive with me. I've been trying to calm the situation, but he won't listen to reason." Daniels took off his sunglasses and hooked them on his shirt pocket. He looked at Craig's expensive suit and shiny shoes. Then he looked past Craig at Marcus in his military uniform. Daniels's eyes moved over Marcus quickly, not really seeing him. Not seeing the medals or the rank. Just seeing skin color and making assumptions. "Sir, step back to your vehicle," Daniel said to Marcus. His voice was hard and cold. Marcus blinked in surprise. "Officer, I'd like to explain what happened. This gentleman ran a stop sign and—" "I said step back to your vehicle," Daniels interrupted. He put his hand on his belt near his weapon. Now, the crowd stirred. People murmured in disbelief. The young woman in scrubs called out, "Officer, that's not right. You need to hear what really happened." Daniels turned to look at the crowd with annoyance. "Everyone needs to stay back. This is police business. If you interfere, I'll arrest you for obstruction." Marcus felt his heart sink. This was going exactly the way he had feared, but he knew better than to argue with a cop who was already seeing him as a threat. He walked slowly back toward his damaged car, keeping his hands visible at his sides. Years of being black in America had taught him how to move around police. Slowly, carefully, no sudden movements, no reaching into pockets, no actions that could be misunderstood. Craig followed behind Daniels like a shadow. He was talking fast, telling his version of the story. "I was driving through the intersection completely legally when he came out of nowhere. He hit me and then jumped out of his car yelling. I thought he was going to attack me. I'm telling you, officer, I've never been so frightened in my life." "I understand, sir," Daniels said in a soothing voice. "Don't worry, I'll handle this." He turned to Marcus. "License and registration." "Take them out slowly," Marcus nodded. "My license is in my wallet in my back pocket." My registration is in the glove compartment. He said everything clearly so there would be no confusion. Go ahead, Daniel said.
Slow movements. Marcus reached back slowly and pulled out his wallet.
He opened it and took out his driver's license. Then he walked to his car and opened the door. He leaned in carefully, opened the glove compartment, and found the registration. He held both documents out to Daniels. Daniels took them but did not look at them yet. What's your name? He asked. Marcus Williams. Where are you coming from, Marcus? From home. I was on my way to a veterans charity event downtown. Daniel's eyes flicked to the uniform. You serve? Yes, sir. 25 years. I'm a colonel in the Army. Daniel's expression did not change. He did not seem impressed or interested. Uh-huh. And what happened here? Marcus took a breath. I stopped at the stop sign as required. I looked both ways. I saw this gentleman's SUV approaching from my right, but I had the right of way since I stopped first. However, he failed to stop at his sign and struck my vehicle. I have a dash camera that recorded everything. Craig burst out. That's a complete lie. Officer, don't listen to him. He's making up stories. Daniels held up a hand to Craig but kept his eyes on Marcus. A dash camera? Where is it? Mounted on my windshield right there. Marcus pointed to the small camera. It should have captured the entire incident. Daniels walked around to look at the camera. He studied it for a moment, then came back. We'll see about that. Did you exchange insurance information? We were in the process of doing so when things became confrontational, Marcus said carefully. Confrontational how? Daniels asked. This was the hard part. Marcus knew that if he told the truth about Craig's racist comments and behavior, it might sound like he was playing the race card, but if he said nothing, Craig would control the narrative. Sir, the other driver became verbally aggressive. He made several inappropriate comments and accusations. Inappropriate how? Daniels pushed. Before Marcus could answer, the older woman in the purple jacket stepped forward. Officer, I witnessed everything. I can tell you exactly what happened. That man in the suit ran the stop sign. We all saw it. Daniels turned to her with irritation. Ma'am, I asked you to stay back, but you need to know the truth. She insisted. He's lying to you. The man in uniform did nothing wrong, and that other man said terrible things. Racist things. Several other people in the crowd called out in agreement. She's right. We saw everything. We got it on video. Daniel's face hardened. Everyone needs to be quiet. I will talk to witnesses when I'm ready. Right now you're interfering with my investigation. The crowd fell silent, but angry glances passed between people. They could see what was happening. They could see the different treatment. It was obvious to everyone except Daniels himself, or maybe it was obvious to him too and he just did not care. Craig seized the moment. Officer, this is exactly what I'm talking about. He's got all these people lying for him. They're covering for him. You can see how he manipulates situations. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. This was getting worse by the second. When he opened his eyes, he looked directly at Daniels. Officer, I am being completely honest with you. I did nothing wrong. I'm asking you to please look at the evidence. The dash camera. The traffic camera on that pole over there. He pointed to a city camera mounted on a light pole. The physical evidence from the accident. It will all support what I'm saying. Daniels stared at Marcus for a long moment. Then he said, Why don't you tell me about those medals you're wearing? What are they for? The question caught Marcus off guard. Sir, your medals? What did you get them for? Marcus was not sure why this mattered, but he answered, I have a silver star, a bronze star, a purple heart, and various service medals. Silver star, Daniels repeated. That's for bravery, right? Yes, sir. For valor in combat. Where? Afghanistan. Helmand Province. My unit was ambushed. That's interesting. Daniels cut him off. His tone suggested it was not interesting at all. So you're used to high-stress situations. You're trained for confrontation. Marcus saw where this was going. I'm trained to stay calm and professional, yes. But you're also trained to fight. To use force when necessary. Officer, I don't understand what you're suggesting. Daniel stepped closer. I'm suggesting that maybe this gentleman here had reason to feel threatened by you. You're a big guy. You're military trained. Maybe you used that to intimidate him. The crowd exploded with protests. People shouted that this was ridiculous, that it was wrong. The old man with the gray beard yelled, This is a disgrace. That man is a hero and you're treating him like a criminal. But Daniels was not listening to the crowd. He was focused on Marcus. I'm going to need you to turn around and place your hands on your vehicle. Marcus felt his blood run cold. Why? For officer safety. I need to pat you down and make sure you're not carrying any weapons. Officer, I'm in dress uniform. You can see I'm not armed. That's not your decision to make. Turn around now. Marcus knew he had no choice. If he refused, Daniels would use force. Things could escalate quickly. People could get hurt. So Marcus did what he had to do. He turned around and placed his hands on the roof of his car. He felt shame burn in his chest. Here he was, a decorated war veteran, being treated like a suspect, being humiliated in front of dozens of people. All because of the color of his skin. Craig watched with a satisfied smile. Thank you, officer. I feel much safer now. The young woman in scrubs had tears in her eyes. This is wrong, she said quietly to the people near her. This is so wrong. The old man in the work uniform pulled out his phone. I'm recording this, he announced loudly. The whole world needs to see this. Daniels approached Marcus from behind. Do you have anything in your pockets that might hurt me? Any knives, needles, anything sharp? No, sir, Marcus said. His voice was tight with controlled emotion. I'm going to check. Don't move, Daniels began the pat-down. His hands moved over Marcus's sides, checking for weapons. Then he moved to Marcus's chest. His hand brushed against the metals pinned there. The metal felt different from the fabric of the uniform. Daniels' hand stopped. For the first time since he arrived, Officer Rick Daniels actually looked at Marcus Williams. Really looked at him. His eyes focused on the rank insignia on Marcus's shoulders. Full Colonel. 06, that was high rank. Daniels had been in the military himself, though only for 4 years as an enlisted man. He knew what that rank meant. Then his eyes dropped to the medals. They were arranged in rows, each one representing something significant, but one stood out. The Silver Star. Daniels recognized it immediately. It was the third highest military decoration in the United States Armed Forces. It was given for valor in combat, for extraordinary heroism. Officer Daniels took another step back from Marcus. His face had gone pale. His eyes were locked on that Silver Star medal like it was burning his vision. Marcus could feel the change in the air behind him. He slowly lowered his hands from the car, but did not turn around yet. He waited. Sir, Daniels said quietly. The word came out rough, like it hurt his throat. Where did you serve? Marcus finally turned around. He looked Daniels in the eyes. 3 tours in Iraq with the 173rd Airborne Brigade, 2 tours in Afghanistan with the 101st Airborne Division. I later commanded a battalion in Afghanistan. Daniels's hand unconsciously moved toward his forehead, starting to form a salute, before he caught himself. He was not in uniform. Marcus was not his commanding officer. But the instinct was there. The military training that had been drilled into him years ago. You salute superior officers, you show respect. The Silver Star, Daniels said. It was not a question, but Marcus answered anyway. Yes. What was it for? Marcus did not want to talk about this. Not here. Not now. Not with a crowd watching and Craig standing there with his arms crossed. But Daniels had asked, and something told Marcus that answering might change everything. So he spoke, his voice steady and clear. Helmand Province, Afghanistan, 2018. My unit was conducting a patrol in a village when we were ambushed. Taliban fighters had us pinned down from 3 sides. We had 12 men trapped in a compound with no way out. Air support was 20 minutes away. 20 minutes is a long time when people are shooting at you. The intersection had gone quiet. Even Craig had stopped talking. Everyone was listening now. Marcus continued. I made the decision to lead a counter-assault. We pushed through enemy fire to reach the trapped soldiers. We extracted all 12 men. 3 were wounded but alive. We held our position until the helicopters arrived. The citation says I demonstrated extraordinary heroism and leadership. But I was just doing my job. Those 12 soldiers were my responsibility. I was not going to leave them behind. Daniels's eyes were wet. He blinked hard. I served 4 years, he said quietly. Army. Infantry. I never saw combat, but I know what that medal means. I know what you did. Marcus nodded slowly. What's your name, officer? Daniels. Rick Daniels. Were you honorably discharged? Yes, sir, yes. Then thank you for your service, Marcus said. Those simple words seemed to break something in Daniels. He looked down at his own hands like he did not recognize them, like they belonged to someone else, someone he did not want to be. Craig could sense he was losing control of the situation. Officer Daniels, I don't understand what's happening here. This man hit my car. He threatened me. Why are you talking about his military service? That has nothing to do with this. Daniels turned to Craig. His face was different now. Harder. Sir, I need you to be quiet for a moment. Excuse me, Craig sputtered. I will not be quiet. I'm the victim here. I called for help and you're supposed to— I said be quiet. Daniels' voice cracked like a whip. Craig actually stepped back, shocked into silence. Daniels pulled out his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I need a supervisor at my location. Also requesting traffic camera footage from the intersection of 5th and Main. And I need someone to review dash camera footage from one of the vehicles involved. Craig's eyes went wide. Wait, what? Why do you need a supervisor? Why are you checking cameras? I told you what happened. Daniels ignored him. He turned back to Marcus. Colonel Williams, He stopped. He seemed to be struggling with words. I made assumptions when I pulled up. I thought. He could not finish the sentence. Marcus helped him. You saw a black man and a white man. You assumed the black man was the problem. Daniels flinched like he had been hit. Yes, he said quietly. Yes, sir. That's exactly what I did. Even though I was in uniform, even though you were in uniform, even though you have that rank, those medals. Daniel shook his head. I served. I know what those mean. But I still saw your skin color first, and I made judgments based on that. The crowd was silent. This moment felt important, raw, real. The old woman in the purple jacket had tears running down her face. The young woman in scrubs covered her mouth with her hand. Even the people recording on their phones seemed stunned. Craig broke the moment. This is insane, he shouted. This is absolutely insane. Officer, you're being manipulated. Can't you see that? He's using his military service to get out of trouble. That's what these people do. They play on your sympathy and— These people? Daniels turned to Craig. His voice was dangerous now. What did you just say? You heard me. These people always— Stop talking, Daniels said. Right now. Craig's face turned red. I will not. I have rights. I'm a taxpayer. I donate to the Police Benevolent Fund. I have friends on the city council. You can't talk to me this way. Daniels walked toward Craig slowly. Let me tell you what I heard over the last 2 minutes while I've been standing here. I heard you refer to these people multiple times. I heard the way you said it. I know what that means. I didn't mean anything by it, Craig protested. Yes, you did. Daniels looked at the crowd. Did anyone else hear him use racial slurs or make racist statements before I arrived? Hands shot up. At least a dozen people raised their hands. The old man with the gray beard spoke up. Officer, I heard him say things I won't repeat. He insulted this man's service. He said the colonel probably bought his uniform at a surplus store. He said his medals were fake. He suggested the colonel didn't deserve to wear that uniform. The young woman in scrubs added, He said you people at least 10 times. He said we were all lying because we looked like the colonel. He accused us of sticking together based on race. Other voices joined in, confirming everything. The evidence was overwhelming. Craig looked around wildly like a trapped animal. They're all lying, he screamed. You can't believe them. They're all in on it together. Daniels pulled out a small notepad. Sir, I'm going to need your name and license. What? Why? Because I have multiple witnesses saying you used racial slurs and made discriminatory statements. That's a hate crime enhancement in this state. Craig's jaw dropped. Hate crime? Are you kidding me? I'm the victim here. He hit my car. We'll see about that, Daniels said. The traffic cameras will show us exactly what happened. Now give me your license. Craig fumbled for his wallet. His hands were shaking. He pulled out his license and thrust it at Daniels. This is a mistake. A huge mistake. When my lawyer hears about this, you can call your lawyer from the station if necessary, Daniels said. He looked at the license. Craig Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman, I'm going to ask you to wait by your vehicle while I review the evidence. Marcus watched all of this with mixed feelings. He was glad that Daniels had finally seen the truth. But he was also angry. Angry that it had taken seeing his medals to change the officer's mind. Angry that his 25 years of service, his rank, his decorations, none of that had been visible to Daniels at first. Only his skin color had mattered. Until those medals forced Daniels to see him differently. Daniels approached Marcus again. He looked uncomfortable, ashamed. Colonel Williams, I owe you an apology. A serious apology. I treated you like a suspect when you were the victim. I should have listened to you first. I should have checked the evidence before making assumptions. I let my biases affect my judgment. Marcus studied Daniels' face. The man looked genuinely sorry. But sorry was not enough. Officer Daniels, do you know how many times this has happened to me? Not just with police, but in general? Do you know how many times I've had to prove myself? To show my credentials? To demonstrate that I belong in the spaces I occupy? Daniels shook his head. No, sir. I don't. Too many times to count, Marcus said. I've been a colonel for 6 years. Before that, I was a lieutenant colonel, a major, a captain. I've led soldiers in combat. I've made life and death decisions. I've earned every single medal on this uniform. But none of that protected me today. You still saw me as a threat. You still treated me like a criminal. I know, Daniel said quietly. I know, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't change what happened. Sorry doesn't undo the humiliation of being patted down in public. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that you believed a lying racist over a decorated veteran. Daniels looked at the ground. No, sir, it doesn't. Marcus took a deep breath. But you know what? At least you're acknowledging it. At least you're not making excuses. That's more than a lot of people would do. A second police car pulled up. A woman in a sergeant's uniform got out. She was older than Daniels, maybe in her late 40s, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She walked over with a confident stride. I'm Sergeant Martinez, she said. What's the situation here, Daniels? Daniels straightened up. Ma'am, we have a traffic accident with conflicting statements. Multiple witnesses say the driver of the SUV ran a stop sign and then made racially charged statements. I've requested traffic camera footage and I'm in the process of reviewing dash camera evidence. Martinez looked at Marcus in his uniform. Her eyes went to his medals. Unlike Daniels, she seemed to see them immediately. Colonel, she said with a respectful nod. Thank you for your patience while we sort this out. Thank you, Sergeant, Marcus replied. Martinez walked over to Craig. Sir, I'm going to need you to answer some questions. Craig pointed at Marcus. That man is a liar. He caused this accident and now he's trying to... Sir, Martinez interrupted. I've already been briefed. Please just answer my questions. For the first time since the accident, Craig seemed to realize he was in real trouble. His confident sneer was gone. His face was pale. He looked around at all the people watching him. At all the phones recording. At the evidence that was about to prove he was wrong. Marcus watched it all and felt exhausted. Justice might be coming, but it had taken so much to get here. It had taken medals and rank and a crowd of witnesses and video evidence. It had taken Daniels finally seeing past his biases. It had taken everything Marcus had just to be believed. And he could not help but think about all the people who did not have medals on their chest, who did not have witnesses or cameras, who faced this same treatment but had no way to prove their innocence. This was not just about one accident or one racist man or one biased cop. This was about a system, a pattern, a problem that was bigger than any of them. And even on this sunny Tuesday afternoon, with justice finally within reach, Marcus Williams knew that this fight was far from over. Sergeant Martinez spent the next 20 minutes taking control of the scene. She interviewed witnesses, had Daniels pull up the traffic camera footage on his laptop in the patrol car, and examined both damaged vehicles. Marcus stood by his car, answering questions when asked but mostly just waiting. The crowd had not left. If anything, more people had gathered. Word had spread on social media that something important was happening at this intersection. Daniels sat in his patrol car, staring at his computer screen. Marcus could see him through the windshield. The officer's face was tight with concentration, or maybe shame. It was hard to tell from a distance. Craig paced near his SUV, talking loudly on his phone. "I don't care what it costs," he was saying. "Get down here now. I need the best lawyer we have. This is a disaster." He caught Marcus watching him and quickly looked away. The old woman in the purple jacket approached Marcus. She held out a bottle of water. "You look like you could use this," she said kindly. Marcus accepted it with a grateful smile. "Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that." "I'm Margaret," she said. "Margaret Chen. I'm so sorry about what you've been through today. This shouldn't have happened to you." "Unfortunately, Mrs. Chen, this kind of thing happens more often than it should." Margaret shook her head sadly. "I know, I wish I could say I don't know, but I do. My husband was Chinese. He passed away 5 years ago. But I remember the looks he used to get, the comments, the assumptions people made." She gestured at his uniform. "You've served this country with honor and you still have to deal with this. It breaks my heart." Marcus took a sip of water. "People like you make it better. The fact that you stayed, that you spoke up, that matters more than you know." A young black teenager had been watching from the sidewalk. He wore a high school basketball jersey and had a backpack slung over one shoulder. He walked over hesitantly. "Excuse me, sir," he said to Marcus. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." The teenager looked at Marcus's medals. "How do you stay? Calm? Like that cop was treating you so wrong and you didn't get mad, you didn't yell. How?" Marcus considered the question carefully. This young man needed a real answer, an honest answer. "I did get mad," he said. "I was furious inside. But I've learned that sometimes showing anger just gives people an excuse to hurt you more. They want you to lose control. They want to say, 'See, I knew he was dangerous.' So I stay calm. I stay professional. Not because it's fair, but because it keeps me alive." The teenager nodded slowly. "That's messed up, though, that you have to do that. You're right, it is messed up. But that's the world we live in, at least for now." Marcus looked at the young man. "What's your name?" "Darius." "Well, Darius, here's what I want you to remember. Yes, you have to be careful. Yes, you have to be smarter and calmer than everyone else sometimes. But don't let that stop you from being great. I didn't let it stop me. I became a colonel in the army. I led soldiers. I saved lives. I made a difference. You can too." Darius's eyes lit up. "Really? Really? You're going to face challenges that aren't fair, but you're going to overcome them. And one day you're going to help change things so the next generation doesn't have to go through what we went through." "Thank you, sir," Darius said. He stood a little straighter. "Thank you for your service and for being real with me." After Darius walked away, Marcus felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to find the old man with the gray beard. Up close, Marcus could see the man's eyes were sharp and clear. There was wisdom in his face. "That was good," the old man said. "What you told that boy. He needed to hear it." He held out his hand. "James Robinson. People call me Jim." Marcus shook his hand. "Marcus Williams." "I know," Jim said with a slight smile. "We all heard your name about 100 times from that fool over there." He nodded toward Craig. "I'm a veteran too. Vietnam, Marines, 2 tours. Semper Fi," Marcus said. "Semper Fi," Jim replied. They shared a moment of understanding. 2 men who had served, who had faced enemy fire, who had come home to a country that did not always appreciate them. "What you're going through right now, I went through 40 years ago. When I came back from Vietnam, people spit on me, called me baby killer. And that was the white people. The black people had their own issues with me joining the military. Said I was fighting the white man's war. Marcus nodded. I've heard similar things. But you know what? I don't regret serving. Not for 1 second. Because I know what I did. I know who I am. And these medals? Jim tapped his chest, though he was not in uniform. Mine are in a box at home, but they're mine. I earned them, just like you earned yours. And nobody can take that away from us. Sergeant Martinez walked over, interrupting their conversation. Colonel Williams, I've reviewed all the evidence. The traffic camera clearly shows Mr. Hoffman's vehicle running the stop sign. Your dash camera confirms this. The physical damage to both vehicles is consistent with your account. Multiple witnesses support your version of events. There's no question about what happened here. Marcus felt relief wash over him. Thank you, Sergeant. Martinez lowered her voice. I also want to apologize on behalf of the department. Officer Daniels' initial response was inappropriate and unprofessional. This incident will be documented, and there will be additional training. Additional training won't fix the problem, Marcus said quietly. But it's a start. Martinez looked uncomfortable but nodded. You're right. It's deeper than training. But we have to start somewhere. She glanced over at Craig. As for Mr. Hoffman, I have enough evidence to charge him with multiple offenses. Failure to stop at a stop sign, reckless driving, making false statements to police, and given the witness testimony about his racial slurs and behavior, we're adding a hate crime enhancement. A hate crime? Craig's voice rang out. He had been listening from his SUV. He stormed over, his face red again. That's ridiculous. I never used any racial slurs. These people are making things up. Martinez pulled out her notepad. Mr. Hoffman, I have statements from 14 different witnesses. They all heard you make racially charged comments. Several people recorded video. Do you really want to keep denying it? Craig's lawyer must have told him to stay quiet, because he suddenly clamped his mouth shut. But his eyes burned with hatred as he looked at Marcus. Daniels got out of his patrol car and walked over. He looked at Marcus for a long moment before speaking. Colonel Williams, can I talk to you? Privately? Martinez nodded her permission. Marcus and Daniels walked a few steps away from the others. Daniels seemed to be struggling with what to say. Sir, I want to explain something, he finally said. Not as an excuse. Just so you understand. I grew up in a small town, mostly white. I didn't know many black people until I joined the army. And in the army it was different. We were all soldiers. Race didn't matter as much. Or at least I thought it didn't. Marcus listened without interrupting. But when I left the army and became a cop, something changed. The training, the culture, the way we're taught to see threats, it messed with my head. I started seeing things differently. I started making assumptions I never would have made in the military. Daniels looked down at his hands. Today, when I pulled up and saw you and Mr. Hoffman, I didn't see two citizens who needed help. I saw a black man and a white man, and my brain just automatically put you in the potential threat category. It was wrong. It was so wrong. Yes, it was, Marcus agreed. When I felt your medals during the pat-down, it was like someone turned on a light in a dark room. Suddenly I could see clearly. I could see what I was doing, who you were, what I had become. Daniel's voice cracked. I served alongside black soldiers. Some of them saved my life. And I still treated you like a criminal. What does that make me? Marcus took a deep breath. It makes you human. A human with biases that our society programmed into you. But you know what? At least you're aware of it now. A lot of cops never get to that awareness. They go their whole careers treating people like I was treated today, and they never question it. That doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't, but awareness is the first step. What matters is what you do next. Do you go back to your old ways? Or do you actually change? Daniels looked Marcus in the eyes. I want to change. I need to change. Then do the work, Marcus said. Examine your biases. Question your assumptions. When you pull up to a scene, don't let skin color be the first thing you see. See people as individuals. See their humanity before you see their race. How do I do that? Marcus smiled sadly. If I knew the perfect answer, this wouldn't keep happening. But you start by being honest with yourself, by remembering this moment, this feeling you have right now, this shame and regret. Remember it. Let it guide you the next time you're in a situation like this. Daniels nodded slowly. I will, I promise you I will. Can I ask you something? Marcus said. Of course. When you saw my silver star, when you realized what it meant, did that change how you saw me? Completely. Why? Why did it take seeing that medal for you to respect me? Daniels opened his mouth, then closed it. He thought about the question. I guess because it's something I understand. I know what that medal represents. I know the sacrifice. So it made you real to me. It made you more than just a skin color. But I was real before you saw the medal, Marcus said gently. I was a human being with dignity and rights before you knew about my military service. Every black person you meet is real. Whether they have medals or not. Whether they've served or not. Whether they're a colonel or a cashier. Daniels looked like he might cry. You're right. God, you're so right. Look, I'm not trying to destroy you here, Marcus said. I'm trying to help you understand. Because you seem like you actually want to learn. That's rare. Most people get defensive. They make excuses. But you're listening. That's valuable. Thank you, sir, Daniels said. Thank you for giving me a chance to learn. After what I did to you, you didn't have to do that. Maybe not. But if we don't teach each other, nothing changes. Sergeant Martinez called over to them. Daniels, I need you to process Mr. Hoffman. Williams, you're free to go. We have your statement and contact information. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. Marcus shook Daniels' hand. Good luck, officer. I hope you mean what you said. I do, sir. I really do. As Daniels walked away to arrest Craig Hoffman, Marcus watched. Craig was arguing, threatening, demanding to speak to his lawyer, but it did not matter anymore. The evidence was clear. Justice was coming. It had taken too long and required too much proof, but it was coming. The crowd began to disperse. People came up to Marcus one by one to shake his hand, thank him for his service, and apologize for what he went through. Margaret gave him a hug. Jim saluted him. Darius took a photo with him. The young woman in scrubs told him he was her hero. These small kindnesses helped heal something that had been broken today. But as Marcus finally got back in his damaged car to drive to the auto shop, he knew this was not a complete victory. Yes, Craig would face consequences. Yes, Daniels had learned something. But tomorrow another black person would be treated unjustly. Another racist would feel entitled to their hatred. Another cop would let bias guide their actions. This was one battle in a war that had been going on for centuries. Still, Marcus thought as he started his car, maybe one battle at a time was how wars were won. Maybe every person like Daniels who woke up to their biases moved the needle a little bit. Maybe every witness who spoke up made a difference. Maybe every young person like Darius who saw him stand with dignity would be inspired to do the same. Maybe that was enough. Or maybe it had to be enough because it was all they had. Marcus arrived at the charity event 2 hours late. His car was being towed to a repair shop, so he had caught a ride with Jim Robinson, the Vietnam veteran he had met at the accident scene. Jim had insisted on driving him, saying he would not let a fellow service member miss an important event because of some racist troublemaker. The Veterans Center was a modest building on the edge of downtown. Its brick walls were covered with murals painted by local artists, showing scenes from different wars and celebrating the men and women who had served. As Marcus walked through the front doors with Jim beside him, he could hear music and laughter from inside. The event was already in full swing. About 100 people filled the main hall, most of them veterans from different eras. There were old men in their 70s and 80s who had served in Vietnam and Korea, middle-aged men and women from Desert Storm and the early days of Iraq. Young veterans, some still in their 20s, who bore the invisible scars of Afghanistan and the later Iraq campaigns. They represented every branch of service and every background. This was what America was supposed to look like, Marcus thought. People of all colors and beliefs united by their shared sacrifice. A young woman with prosthetic legs spotted Marcus and waved him over. She was Lieutenant Sarah Chen, one of the event organizers. Colonel Williams, we were worried about you. Is everything okay? Marcus smiled tiredly. There was an incident. A car accident. It got complicated. But I'm here now. Sarah noticed the stress in his eyes. Do you need a minute? We can wait to start your speech. No, let's get started. These people have been waiting long enough. Jim squeezed Marcus's shoulder. I'll grab us some food. You go do your thing. He walked off toward the buffet table. Sarah led Marcus to a small stage at the front of the room. She tapped a microphone, getting everyone's attention. The crowd quieted down, turning to face the stage. Good evening, everyone. I know we're running a bit behind schedule, but we have a very special guest with us tonight. Colonel Marcus Williams has served our country for 25 years. He's been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan multiple times. He's received the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, and the Purple Heart. More importantly, he's dedicated his post-service life to helping other veterans. Please give him a warm welcome. The room erupted in applause. Marcus walked onto the stage, feeling the weight of the day lifting slightly. This was why he did this, not for the recognition, but to help his fellow veterans, to make sure they knew they were not alone. He stood at the microphone and looked out at the faces watching him. Thank you, Lieutenant Chen, and thank you all for being here tonight. He paused, deciding to be honest with them. I have to tell you, I almost didn't make it here. I was in a car accident earlier today and things got complicated. I faced some prejudice, some assumptions based on the color of my skin rather than the content of my character. The room went silent. Everyone was listening now. I tell you this not to make you feel sorry for me, but because I know many of you have faced similar things. We serve our country. We put our lives on the line. We do everything that's asked of us and more. And then we come home and find out that some people still don't see us as equal, still don't respect us, still make judgments based on race or gender or religion. Heads nodded throughout the room. A black woman in her 30s wiped her eyes. A Hispanic man in a wheelchair stared at the floor. They all knew what Marcus was talking about. But here's what I learned today, Marcus continued. I learned that there are more good people than bad people in this world. At that intersection, when things looked dark, a whole crowd of strangers stood up for me. They spoke the truth. They refused to let injustice win. An elderly Chinese woman, a young black woman, an old veteran like many of you, teenagers with their phones. They all used their voices. Marcus's own voice grew stronger. And one of the police officers, a man who started out treating me wrong because of his own biases, he had the courage to see his mistake, to acknowledge it, to apologize. That takes strength. Real strength. More strength than it takes to swing a fist or fire a weapon. It takes strength to look at yourself honestly and admit you were wrong. The audience was completely focused on him now. Some people were recording on their phones. Others were taking notes, so yes, I faced racism today. But I also saw hope. I saw people choosing to be better. Choosing to stand up. Choosing to change. Marcus looked around the room. That's what we need from all of you. When you see injustice, speak up. When you see someone being treated unfairly, be a witness. Use your voice. Use your presence. Make it harder for bad things to happen in the shadows. A woman in an Air Force uniform raised her hand. Marcus nodded at her. Colonel, what do we do when the people who are supposed to protect us are the ones treating us unfairly? It was a hard question, an important question. Marcus thought carefully before answering. We don't give up on the system. We work to change it. We file complaints when necessary. We demand accountability. We support good officers and call out bad ones. Change is slow, but it happens. It happens because people like us refuse to accept things as they are. An older white veteran stood up. Colonel, I'm ashamed to say I probably would have been like that officer at first. Making assumptions. I grew up in a different time with different attitudes, but listening to you and serving alongside people like you has changed me. What can people like me do to help? Marcus smiled at the man's honesty. The fact that you're asking that question means you're already helping. Keep asking it. Keep listening. When you see other people from your background making those same assumptions, speak up. The man nodded and sat down, looking thoughtful. For the next hour, Marcus talked about the charity's work. They provided job training for veterans. They helped with housing. They offered counseling for PTSD and other mental health issues. They connected veterans with resources. But more than anything, they provided community. A place where people who had served could feel understood and supported. After his speech, Marcus mingled with the crowd. He shook hands and listened to stories. A young woman told him about her struggles adjusting to civilian life after serving in the Air Force. An older man shared memories of his time in the Navy. A Marine talked about starting a business with the help of the charities programs. Darius, the teenager from the intersection, showed up with his mother. She hugged Marcus tight. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for talking to my son today. He came home so inspired. He's been telling everyone about you." Darius looked embarrassed but proud. "Mom, stop." "No, I won't stop," she said firmly. She looked at Marcus. "My son needs role models like you. Black men who are strong and educated and successful. Men who show him what's possible. You gave him that today." Marcus shook Darius's hand. "Your son is going to do great things. I can tell." As the evening wore on, Marcus found himself sitting with Jim Robinson and a few other Vietnam veterans. They were swapping stories the way old soldiers do. Their stories were funny and sad, and sometimes both at once. They talked about the friends they had lost, the battles they had fought, the way the world had changed since they were young. "You know," Jim said, "when I came back from Vietnam, I was so angry. Angry at the protesters, angry at the government, angry at everyone who didn't understand what we went through. I carried that anger for years. What changed?" Marcus asked. "Time, mostly. And realizing that anger was eating me alive. I had to let it go or it would destroy me." Jim looked at Marcus seriously. "You went through something today that would make anyone angry. Hell, you've probably gone through versions of it your whole life. Don't let it make you bitter. Don't let it steal your joy." Marcus thought about Craig Hoffman's red face and hateful words. He thought about Daniel's initial treatment of him. He thought about all the similar incidents over the years, the accumulated weight of them. "Some days it's hard not to be bitter," he admitted. "I know," Jim said. "But look around this room. Look at all these people who respect you, who admire you, who are inspired by you. That's real. That's what matters. Don't let the Craig Hoffmans of the world take up space in your head. They're not worth it." Sarah Chen came over with a piece of paper. "Colonel, I wanted to show you something. The local news picked up your story. It's all over social media. People are calling you a hero." Marcus took the paper. It was a printout of a news article. The headline read, "Decorated Army Colonel Faces Racism After Car Accident Shows Grace Under Pressure." There were photos from the scene. Images of Marcus standing calmly by his car. A photo of his medals. A shot of Daniels looking ashamed. "I'm not a hero," Marcus said quietly. "I just stood there and kept my cool." "That's exactly why you're a hero," Sarah replied. "You showed people how to respond to hate with dignity. You educated instead of attacking. You gave that officer a chance to learn and grow. That's powerful." Marcus read through the article. It mentioned several witnesses by name, including Margaret Chen and the young woman in scrubs. The reporter had found them and gotten their perspectives. They all spoke about Marcus's composure and professionalism, about how he had stayed calm when he had every right to be angry. The article also mentioned that Craig Hoffman had been charged with multiple offenses, including a hate crime enhancement. His real estate company's website had been flooded with negative reviews. His lawyer had issued a statement claiming his client's words were taken out of context, but multiple videos proved otherwise. As for Officer Daniels, the article said he was receiving additional bias training and would be monitored closely. The police department had issued a formal apology to Marcus. It was not enough, Marcus thought, but it was something. "You know what bothers me?" Marcus said to Sarah and Jim. "It took all of this for people to believe me. The uniform, the medals, the witnesses, the video evidence. What about all the people who don't have those things? What happens to them?" Sarah nodded sadly. "You're right. The system is broken. But stories like yours help. They show people what's wrong. They make it harder to deny that these things happen." "I hope so," Marcus said. "I really hope so." As the event wound down and people started leaving, Marcus stood at the entrance shaking hands and saying goodbye. An older black man approached him last. He walked slowly, leaning on a cane. His hair was white and his hands shook slightly, but his eyes were sharp and clear. "Colonel Williams," the man said, "I'm Reverend Thomas Washington. I wanted to thank you for what you did today. I didn't really do anything, Reverend. I just survived a difficult situation." Reverend Washington smiled. "That's doing something. You survived with your dignity intact. You survived without losing your humanity. You even helped a young officer see his mistakes and learn from them. That's not nothing. That's everything." Marcus felt emotion rising in his throat. "It's exhausting, though, having to be perfect all the time." Having to prove myself constantly. Having to educate people while they're treating me unfairly. I know, son. I know. The Reverend's eyes were kind. I marched with Dr. King in the 60s. I've been beaten by police. I've had dogs set on me. I've spent time in jail for trying to vote. And you know what? We're still fighting the same battles. That's hard to accept. So how do you keep going? Marcus asked. How do you not give up? Because I've seen progress. Slow progress. Painful progress. But progress nonetheless. When I was your age, you couldn't have been a colonel in the army. Couldn't have led white soldiers. Couldn't have been treated as an equal, even with all those medals. Things have changed. Not enough. Not fast enough. But they've changed. The Reverend put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. You're part of that change. Every time you show grace under pressure, you're proving something. Every time you educate instead of attacking, you're planting seeds. Some of those seeds won't grow, but some will. And eventually we'll have a whole garden. Marcus nodded, feeling some of his weariness lift. Thank you, Reverend. I needed to hear that. You keep doing what you're doing, son. Keep serving. Keep teaching. Keep being an example. And on the days when it feels like too much, remember that you're not alone. All of us are fighting this fight with you. After everyone had left, Marcus stood alone in the parking lot. The night air was cool and refreshing after the warm day. He looked up at the stars, bright against the dark sky. He thought about his day, about Craig Hoffman's hatred, about Daniel's transformation, about all the people who had stood up for him, about Darius's inspired face, about Reverend Washington's words. It had been one of the hardest days he had experienced in a long time, harder than some of his combat days in a different way. In combat, you knew who the enemy was. You knew the rules of engagement. But this daily battle against prejudice was harder to fight. The enemy wore friendly faces. The battles happened in unexpected places. The weapons were words and assumptions and systemic bias. But Marcus had survived today. More than survived, he had taught. He had helped. He had made a difference. And tomorrow he would wake up and do it again, because that's what service meant, not just wearing a uniform or fighting wars overseas. Service meant fighting for justice at home. Service meant being an example. Service meant never giving up on the promise of what America could be, even when it fell short of that promise. Marcus Williams got into Jim's car for the ride home. As they drove through the quiet city streets, he felt at peace. Not because everything was fine. It wasn't. Not because the fight was over. It wasn't. But because he knew who he was. He knew what he stood for. And he knew that as long as there were people like Margaret and Sarah and Darius and Jim and Reverend Washington, people who cared about justice and were willing to fight for it, there was hope. And sometimes, hope was enough to keep going. Hope was enough to face another day. Hope was enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. One conversation at a time, one changed mind at a time, one act of courage at a time. The medals on his chest caught the streetlight as they drove, glinting in the darkness. They were symbols of battles he had fought and won. But the real battle, Marcus knew, was the one he fought every single day. The battle for dignity, for equality, for justice, and that was a battle worth fighting, no matter how long it took.